Welcome to the Glenn Mercer Show, where we talk all things vegan. If you're not already vegan, no worries, we'll get you there. If you are, tune in for health advice, information on climate change, and all the damage done by our most destructive industry, animal agriculture. We'll also talk cooking, theater, film, and culture. My 2 reasons for starting this podcast: to entertain, to inform, and to make people vegan. Oh, that's 3. Shit. Hi, welcome to the Glenn Mercer Show. You could find us across all your favorite podcast platforms. You could find us on YouTube, and don't forget to subscribe. And you could find us at realmeneatplants.com. Our guest today is Rebecca Martinez, who has a 207-pound weight loss to tell us about. Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Rebecca lives in East Los Angeles, and she has a story to tell about weight loss. Now, Rebecca, at your highest, how much did you weigh?
347 pounds.
347 pounds.
Yeah.
And we have a picture of you when you were on your way to that weight. Let me see if I could get it on the screen.
Yes, that was my ascent picture. I was on my way up. That was at the LA County Fair, probably about 2003. And I'm betting, if I remember correctly, I was just over 300, which is right around the time that I stopped getting on scales.
Over 300 pounds. And I'm guessing that in those years, you started putting on weight at what age?
Right about 18 or 19, but because I used to dance Mexican folklorico dancing, it was kind of staving off some of the weight gain. However, I had started dating someone and I got into that eating junk food, watching TV. And as I stepped away from the movement and upped the caloric content, you know what happens. You know the story.
Yeah. So as you were gaining weight, I'm guessing that you probably went on a few different diets. Am I right?
Everything you can think of short of wiring my jaw shut, which I did consider. A good friend of mine had done it, but she had a really bad problem with it. And I realized that would not be a good idea. But I did Jenny Craig, NutriFast, Nutrisystem, Lindora. I tried the cabbage diet, the pineapple diet, all of the diets in the back of the magazines, the magic pills that you can get. I had these little needles put into my ears. I tried literally starvation, but not fasting. I actually starvation, which it did not do me well at all. I got really sick. And there were a whole bunch of other things that I tried in between, because living in East LA, there's access to things like these pills and potions, and people sell, Amway has a side problem, there's a side business, and there's nutritional components, and there's all these little shakes and things that you can take, and everybody has an idea. I also did the row of dieter's tea at the market. You go down the aisle and you take dieter's tea, and wow, Lord have mercy, because if there's not a bathroom nearby, you are in a world of hurt. So I've been there and done that.
All right. Now, I never heard of needles in the ear. That was a weight loss thing?
It was supposed to be some sort of acupressure thing that was going to, I didn't check the facts. If that were something somebody presented to me today, I would want to look at information to understand it. I understand there's meridians, I understand acupressure, but back then I was just desperate. And every time I knew I was going to try a new diet, I got to treat myself to more junk food, because that meant I'm going to be thin tomorrow. I don't do that anymore.
All right. The needles in the ear didn't work. The other diets, what was the most you ever lost on another diet?
I think Jenny Craig worked only because it was controlled. You picked up your food, you ate it. I was miserable. It tasted horrible, but I was able to do it for however long. And within a few weeks, I was able to take off 10, 15 pounds. Back then, when I did that, that was in my early 20s. I only needed 15, 20 pounds. So I looked great. I felt great. The moment I got off of that weight crept right back up, and I had to get rid of all of those clothes, or I put them in the back of the closet. The closet had a rotation from every size, from the smallest to the largest. But I had success. Diets work if you do them forever, but you will be miserable and it's not something you can sustain. That was the biggest problem. Food calorie restriction. I did what's the famous Weight Watchers and Overeaters Anonymous. So I also tried to check into the more cerebral types of things where you meet and you have a support group. And I remember going through drive-throughs on my way to Overeaters Anonymous because I'd say, got to get it in before they tell you not to. It was a nonstop game for me.
So at what point did your story go turn plant-based? And when did you start to have some real success?
So I literally went plant-based overnight. I did not know that I was going to, and had I known that was going to happen, I may not have, but I was at my heaviest. Again, I'm guessing 347 because I was at the LA County Fair walking around and they had these scales. There was nobody around. So I got on it and I looked and I jumped off so quickly before the person I was with would be able to see that, or anybody. And that scared the heck out of me. So I was at work and a coworker of mine mentioned that she was doing this plant-based cleanse. And I was in the middle of a very stressful upgrade at work. I work in IT. I was at a point where I was literally bringing in a chunk of chocolate and a chunk of cheese. That was my lunch. And I would bite, savory, sweet, savory, sweet. Unfortunately, I like both. And that was what I was using to sustain myself. And I know you can imagine what that does for your health and everything. So she mentioned this cleanse. And I said, at this point, I've got nothing to lose. Here I am in my early 30s. My health is declining. My joints, I had arthritis in my knee already because I had an injury from carrying so much weight. I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. It was 2 doctors down in Santa Monica out here in California, a naturopathic doctor and a naturopathic doctor who was also a medical doctor. And it was a 3-week program called the 21-Day Detox. And it started out with food. It was just food. They did ask you to supplement with some greens, mineral greens, powders, but it was just going vegan. And I gave it a shot and I was like, okay, I could do this. The food was great. They turned you on to some great restaurants. Santa Monica is full of great restaurants. The second week was raw. That was a new thing to me. I didn't understand the raw concept. Oh, don't cook your food. Why not? Oh, the enzymes. You want to make sure your body adjusts. The third week was blended raw. So I learned about the progression of taking your digestive system into a vacation mode and giving your body a chance to rest. 2 things happened for me. I had 17 pounds of weight loss in 3 weeks, and I was eating extremely well. Every part of that program was great food. I didn't feel hungry at all. And I knew something was changing. I also had a healing crisis. I had some kind of weird boil thing that had to get removed. I told my medical doctor, my regular doctor, that I think it was the cleanse. And of course he laughed at it and said, no, food and that doesn't matter. But the 2 doctors in Santa Monica said it was absolutely the cleanse. So I just told myself, I'm just going to keep going on this diet and see how I do. Here I am. In 1 month, I will be celebrating 20 years of being plant-based. I adhere to the principles. I truly believe that food is the medicine and medicine is the food. And that is what they taught. They taught me the power of food and what it can do to heal the body. They taught me so much more, but for the purpose of this conversation, I have run with it. And I'm so glad I did, because I was thoroughly addicted to cheese. And had I known that was going to happen, I probably would have backed out.
Well, congratulations on the 20-year anniversary.
Thank you.
Good health. During those first years of the 20 years, did it just go smoothly? Did the weight just come off gradually? How did it go?
So initially the weight came off because I was eating the standard American diet, but not just standard American. I think I stepped it up a bit. I would stop off at a drive-through, tear down a few cheeseburgers and some cookies, and then come home and tell the person I was living with, hey, let's have dinner now, because I wanted to make sure that he didn't know. My girlfriend, the one who actually got her jaw wired, and I used to call each other the fast food bandits, because the backseat of our car had so many crumpled up fast food paper containers. And then we would go looking for every trash can in town by a bus stop or whatnot so that we could drop it before anybody would see it. So when you switch from that kind of diet to a vegan junk food diet, you'll lose weight. There's still a slight health benefit. It's that good, better, best. It was better, but it was not the best. I started to indulge in the high sugar, oil, salt foods with the plant-based world. I kept losing weight, but eventually something started to plateau. I wasn't exercising. You got to understand, most of my weight loss wasn't exercise, and I'll get to that in a bit. But so then I started to take a few cooking classes, thinking I want to try a few things. I took a raw class. It was great, but it was full of coconut oil and coconuts and nuts and delicious, of course. Then I met someone who introduced me to a cooking class at Chef AJ's house. So I went to Chef AJ's house, and I will never forget this. I sat directly across from her in the recliner with my arms crossed, and I'm listening to her, and my brain was saying, this woman's trying to take away my nuts and my oils and my fun, basically. And she'll tell you this story. She saw it in my face. There is a wall. But eventually it started to get in, that sugar, oil, and salt, the processed stuff, the things that we all talk about, they're not good for our health. And I gave it a shot. I took all of her classes. She offered about 6 different classes back then. So I took all of them, and I quickly became a good friend of hers, and I sous chefed for her for a long time. I traveled with her. I learned a lot. It soaked in. So I improved my diet. I didn't step away from it. And I had a yo-yo problem because of emotional issues, another story. But basically, I was numbing myself to get through a bad relationship. And it wasn't until I freed myself from that relationship that the rest of the weight came off. But I managed to come back down. And I remember when I crossed the 200-pound mark, I was so happy. That was huge. I never saw me.
How many years did that take?
I would probably say, I would say 8 or 9. It was 2012. AJ had her unprocessed challenge group where we all got together. Shada was in that, and we did so well. And that's where I saw myself cross over into the 199. I was so thrilled. I would have leapt, but my knee wouldn't have had it. But I don't remember going from the 300s into the 200s because I didn't get on the scale. But I was watching that 200 mark, and it continued. I kind of hovered in the 190 area, up, down, until my marriage ended in 2019. And when I was done crying and drowning in a foot of water, I stood up and said, that marriage was not suiting me. He wasn't right for me. Wish him the best. I'm going to take care of me. And I did. I lost the last of my weight, and I got into a zone that was safe enough. Now, one thing that I did do, and I'm very happy to share it, is that I had to have skin removed. You don't spend decades as a woman in your 30s and 40s over 200 pounds and think your skin is going to stretch back. I didn't have kids, but I looked like I did. So I had some body contouring because I needed to do that. And it was such a spiritual experience. I would do it again in a heartbeat, because with that skin went my past life, and I'm embracing my new life. And I got used to literally living in my new skin, in my own skin.
Did the skin itself weigh a pound or two?
I totaled 12 pounds. I had to have a few surgeries because there was just so much skin on my body. I did the work to remove fat, but you can't remove that skin. And I tried oils and massages and lights. I'm 53 now. There's no way that in my 40, after 10 years stretching that skin, there's a cost to pay, which is, right. It's not for everybody, but it was for me.
Right. So now you're down to what, 100?
140, I think, but I think I would be a little more comfortable, a few pounds lighter. I'm not sure yet. I'm working out. JP and I are on a program, and I'm trying to figure out the best set for me. I've been between 135 and 145 for the last year. Part of that is the holidays. Part of that is I'm still getting used to working out. I've only been working out for about a year and a half. I added that in because my surgeons told me that the surgery doesn't stay that way. You have to keep it that way because skin and aging, skin stretches and aging happens. So I added that. Plus, as I get older, we need to put stress on the bones for our health.
Okay. Now, basically, it sounds like there was great improvement in your weight loss after you lost the weight of your husband.
Yes.
So there's an emotional component to this too, I take.
Absolutely. I jokingly tell people I lost 200 pounds of jerk, but after that, then I was able to lose the rest of my weight, and it happened almost magically. I moved in with my best friend and my goddaughter, and I was just eating to fuel my body. I wasn't eating out of a place of emotion, and they noticed you're just eating really well. I would just throw a bunch of veggies and stuff in the Instapot, have some salad, and throw it on some sort of starch. And I was fulfilled. I felt good because I dealt with my pain. Once I realized, once I did the work, therapy and spiritual practices and whatnot got me where I'm at. But we hold on. I held on to a lot, and I didn't feel that I was worthy, and I was numbing myself. Glenn, chocolate and cheese for lunch. I'm not kidding. I go straight to the deli department, and they usually had the bricks of chocolate and cheese next to each other because it's an accoutrement. I don't know. I just grabbed the chunks, walked out. That was my lunch. So there was some numbing there. There was some drugging of myself. That's my drug of choice, food.
And so when you worked with AJ, what were the key lessons that you learned?
God, I learned so much from AJ. I learned how to improve the way I cook. One of the reasons that her and I bonded is because I'm good in the kitchen. I'm fast with things, and I learned how to cook from the ex's mother. Mexican cooking, everything you can think of, delicious, but it was just drowning in oils and cheese and meat, and it's just everything bad. So AJ saw that I liked the cooking. We did a lot of things. I helped her with experiments. I traveled with her, and it's soaked in. You spend enough time, it's exposure. It's like anything else, you just open the kimono and expose yourself to it. And I was very much exposed to everything that she taught, and she lived it. I saw her in front of the camera and behind the camera. I was her entourage. I went with her everywhere, and I saw that she lived it. She believed it. She studied it, and it absorbed into me. However, I was her toughest nut to crack because I didn't snap into it entirely until after my marriage. And that was because I was like white knuckling my food. I didn't want to let go of it. And I didn't realize the reason that I was doing it was because that was my comfort. That was my safety blanket. Once I didn't need it for that part of my life, I realized the joy in just eating good, clean food and finding ways to create recipes that taste really good and still hit that spot. And I'm finding a new way to get my dopamine release.
All right. Now, when you were still using food for comfort, was it that you were simply overeating, or was it that you were eating the wrong foods, or both?
Both. I've been studying Dr. Lyle stuff about the nutrient receptors, calorie receptors, and the fullness receptors. And I didn't feel them. I just kept eating. I would wait, and I didn't feel full. I was numbing myself, and I was eating to a point where I honestly feel that I was trying to hurt myself. There was some kind of self-sabotage going on there that was causing me to want to up my game with each bad meal. And I tend to have that black and white personality. I'm either really great or I'm really bad. And when I'm bad, I want to compete with myself. So I will say, oh, I had chips and guacamole, which is, not that bad. Oh, let me add chips, guac, and I'm going to add vegan cheese. Oh, let me add some vegan soy crumbles on top of that. And while I'm at it, let me just add some vegan Doritos. Look, I just kept trying to up the game. And I felt like a crack addict. I was trying to get that hit each time. And it got worse and worse. And balance is something that I am really focusing now, because I didn't just fall off of a wagon. I did a perfectly executed swan dive off the wagon, and I just kept going and going. And the wagon.
And did you feel AJ's presence over your shoulder?
All the time. And whenever I would tell her, she would say, "Why didn't you call me?" And I would say, "Because you would tell me not to. And when I make up my mind, I'm going to do it." I'm that type of person that I'm not going to reach out. I know there are people, I'm not at all saying that everybody's like this. There are people who will reach out and get help, and it works for them. When I make up my mind, I'm just going to do it. So I've learned that I need to find my balance principles within me. And that has helped me then open a door to being able to reach out to somebody and hear what they have to say. Whereas before I would just say, nope, sorry, AJ. And having AJ as somebody I can reach out to, many people would say that is invaluable, but I want to hear it because I was her friend. I worked with her for so long. And when I finally crossed over and, I saw her as recently as a few weeks ago, she jokingly calls me skinny. And it's just like, wow, hearing that from you. And it's because the principles have soaked in. They're there. Now, when I need to call on them, I know them. I know all of the works from the people in your world, and I put them into practice in what I do.
Oh, that's beautiful. Now, what's the best thing about having lost the weight? Was there anything that surprised you?
The best, gosh, nobody's ever asked me that. It is not about, I think it's about feeling like people don't look through me anymore. I always felt like I kind of faded back into the world. And now I've reemerged and I want people to see me. And it's not about the size. I think everybody is worthy of being seen. But if you don't love yourself, you don't let them see you. I think everybody is beautiful, but they don't love themselves enough. And when I was able to shed that weight, that skin was literally my ex-husband and that life. And I just symbolically let go of it. And I said, I'm happy now. I'm comfortable in my skin and I love me. And I was really working on it through therapy, through friends, through journaling, gratitude, and prayer. And I'm at a point where I love myself and I can see myself, which means I'm going to let people see me. I didn't want people to see me before because there was a lot of shame that was just kind of hovering over me.
Now, Rebecca, you live in East Los Angeles.
I do.
You're of Mexican heritage yourself, and I'm sure that most of your neighbors, most people in the neighborhood, or many of them, are of Mexican heritage.
Yes.
What's the state of the plant-based movement in your community? Do you have many people there who are along on the same journey?
There is probably a small group out here, I'm sure, but I'm betting it is the younger crowd. Again, I'm in my 50s. I'm betting their teenagers are in their 20s. There were a couple of little restaurants that popped up here, but they were not health promoting in any way. They were vegan. So, which, I give them that credit for making that option available. There's a vegan bakery in Boyle Heights. There was a Doomie's down the street, and then there was a vegan fried chicken place. None of those are going to be good for you. But in general, I would say this community, anybody that I meet that's from this area, my friends, they're used to me. My friends are wonderful and they're very supportive, but people in this neighborhood would think I'm insane. How could you be a Mexican and not eat, pork or chicken or beef with all of the holidays and all of the traditional favorites and the cheese and the oil? How could you cook something without oil? I have learned through recipes that I've taken from a previous life to learn to make really good Mexican food. I have hacked it and translated it over to plant-based, but not only that, I've made it free of sugar, oil, and most sauce. There's some things here and there that I add a little bit to for flavor, but for the most part, it's spot on. I had it vetted by the children of that person. So it's good. And I make those things as my go-to, and I don't use the oil. Taquitos without oil, guacamole that's cut, so it's part avocado, part peas, rice and beans and tamales, champurrados. I mean, there's a lot of things that I've made that I really think are delicious. I've shared with friends. They love it. People in our plant-based community love it, but I really like it when somebody that is not plant-based gives me the thumbs up, and they have.
Yeah. Well, I think Dr. McDougall would say that the corn and the rice and the beans are the traditional Mexican food, not the pork and the beef and the chicken. Am I right?
He would. And I would agree with him. And most of us grew up on it because we all grew up. This is an area that, the income level is lower than most. And we didn't have much, but rice, beans, and tortillas are a staple. However, unfortunately, I can walk down this neighborhood. There's probably 2 or 3 pop-up taco stands, or, or the roll-up catering trucks that have all of the stuff, the tacos, burritos, you name it. And it is just heavily saturated with meats and cheeses and oils. You can see it dripping when they pull the stuff out of the trays or whatnot. You would think it is a simple staple that they should live off of, but they have added so much to it, and that palate saturation over the years. You can get churros, you can get fried foods, everything you want if you go to the main street here. It is insane what these pop-ups have. Not one pop-up that I've noticed that offers anything remotely healthy.
And I'm guessing that there's an extraordinary amount of obesity in the neighborhood.
Yes, there is. Not as much with the younger folks. There is with some younger people, more than I'm used to seeing from way back when, but it is with those that are in getting older because of sedentary lifestyle and that much eating, more exposure to that eating. But yes, there are younger children that are putting on more pounds than I remember from when I was in grade school. Yeah. It's a sad reflection on the diet.
Yeah. And do any of the people who are overweight come over to you and say, how did you do it? And show curiosity and start doing it themselves?
I don't interact with too many people in the neighborhood. And when I'm out and about doing things, I don't really tell my story. But for people who meet me and then they'll say something to me like, oh, well, you're trim. And I'll say, well, I wasn't. And I understand this. And that opens up the door to curiosity. A lot of times people, as soon as they hear what my diet is like, there's almost a fear in their eyes, like, whoa, I'm not giving that up. Whoa. And I remember it. So I have learned because of my experience with AJ, because I did the same thing to her sitting across from her. I would have that fear in her class, same thing with people. And I tell them, I know where you're coming from. I was there, but trust me, it's worth it. It is so much better to be on this side of the health journey than the other one. And I still stumble, Glenn. As recently as over the holidays, I had to reach back out to JP and get back on with a lot of modalities that I use to keep myself in place. There is a maintenance component to it. It is not just once you do it, you're good, easy sailing. There is work. You have to work it, because that AJ used to say that, when you kick your food habit, that addiction is in the corner doing push-ups. And she's right. It is getting stronger because it's waiting to come back and get you. And it does. And it has. And I just keep learning. I'm recovering faster. No more swan dive. It's a little bit of a stumble. And I'm having more and more successes where if I do something I shouldn't, or I eat something that I don't normally eat, the very next meal, I'm getting something good back into my diet. And that is huge, because usually I go back into that self-sabotage mode and that gets me nowhere. It messes with my brain. It messes with my overall temperament. I am not pleasant to deal with. Clothes get tight. My mood is bad. Work is off. Everything shifts. Once you come back into solid and sturdy and strong, it is an amazing shift, body, mind, and spirit.
Now, you mentioned JP. For our listeners, that is a fellow named John Pierre.
Yes, sorry.
Who is a fitness coach and a nutritional coach. And
Absolutely.
So you have worked with both AJ and JP.
Yes, I have.
You specialize in people with 2 initials when one of them is a J, I guess.
I do. That's my thing.
Okay. And so what has been and I'm going to be interviewing JP next week.
Awesome.
What has been the effect of JP's influence on you?
JP has been there the entire length of my journey with AJ, because I will say that for the sake of, I believe, our community here, it started when I was introduced to AJ's classes. So that was about 2009. But around 2011-ish or 12, she gifted me a session with him to thank me for helping her in the kitchen. So I remember meeting in the lobby of where she lived, and he was talking to me and we went through everything. It was everything he's telling me now. I'll give you the spoiler alert, but I wasn't ready. I just kind of like, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Childhood trauma. I just kind of went around it.
Oh, so
Went
some of
about,
it was psychological. It wasn't all exercise stuff.
oh yeah, well, I've gone through a lot, as we all have, and I didn't, I'm adopted. There was a lot of pain in that whole area. There was childhood issues. Um, JP helped me to tap into it. I think he realized I was in a bad relationship before I did. I think many people did, but because you don't love yourself enough, you just kind of say, well, it doesn't suck. And, he's not bad. And, who else is going to want to be with me? So I did the program with AJ. JP worked us out. I mean, he kicked our butts and got us through that. I talked to him on and off over the years, but about 2 years ago, give or take, I was gaining weight again post surgery, and I was getting nervous about it because I went up over like 155. I was like, whoa, something's not good here. So I called JP. Something told me to call JP. I prayed about it and finally came to me, call him. And I got a hold of him, and he was just so sweet. And he was just like, so where have you been? And he meant over the last 10 years, 12 years, he meant it. We've talked on and off over the years, but he's like, where have you been? And I felt it. I felt that deep in my soul. And I said, I know, JP, it's just taken me. I said, but I'm here now, and I will do whatever we need to. And he got me back. He encouraged me to continue with the therapy that I was doing to deal with the trauma. But he also gave me some good words about talking to this little girl and giving her the love and going back to show up for her. Because he said, basically, when you're not showing up for her, when you're not eating well and exercising, what are you teaching her about how much you love her and how you want to protect her from everything that's happened?
And her is you?
Little me, little Rebecca,
you.
little Rebecca.
So JP was approaching this from a very psychological standpoint.
I think he was just approaching it from a compassion and kindness standpoint, which is what his Pillars of Health book is about. But he added in the other component, the strong, savvy, safe part, which is you need to really work out, take care of your body, strengthen your body, but you need to love yourself and be kind and caring. And you put the two of them together and you have an amazing combination. So I did it, as corny as it seemed. I'd get in the mirror and I just say, hey, are you there? I love you. I'm going to be there for you. It was funny. I was laughing. There was nobody around, but I was like, this is ridiculous. Until one day it locked and something in my eyes jumped out and I could almost picture little me. And I just said, okay, we're going to do this. And every day I'd get up, I'd work out, and then I would eat the food. And every time I did, he would encourage me to say to myself, hey, little Rebecca, we're doing this for you. We love you. And in time, I started to get really strong. With about a year later, I had lost the weight. I got down to about 135, 136. I was strong. Everybody would say to me, you looked good after the surgery, but you looked a little sallow. You looked a little doughy. And they said, but you look strong now. And that, I didn't even realize after the surgery, okay, I guess I did look like a thin, doughy kind of person. Now I am starting to build definition, and I do look strong and I look fit. So JP helped pull me out of that funk, and he checks on me, and I won't go away from him ever again now. I will check in periodically. In fact, I checked in this morning, and I'm making sure. And when he's in town, I see him in person. We do some workouts. We tweak what I'm doing. He'll ask me about the food, and he's not about the food as much as others would be. And I think he's spot on, because when you start doing the personal work, the food just comes. That's what happened to me after my marriage. When I got rid of him and I realized, this is not suiting me, I am going to try to figure this out. I just started eating right without needing it. So when you get rid of that heavy weight of whatever it is that's hurting, in my opinion, for me, the food just fell into place. So that's why he didn't worry about it as much. But he is a stickler about moving the body and about kindness and compassion.
All right. We'll be right back with Rebecca Martinez after a quick break.
All right, if you've ever wanted to show off your plant-based lifestyle and do it in style, here's your chance. We have some of the most amazing t-shirts, hats, accessories, coffee mugs, and more at shop.realmeneatplants.com. We have statement t-shirts that will bring a smile to everyone's face. I love the I want tofu tonight tee. Plus, we have podcast tees, Real Women Eat Plants gear, Real Kids Eat Plants, and Real People Eat Plants, just in case men, women, and kids didn't cover it all. Yeah, we love you and love that you want to show off that healthy lifestyle of yours. Again, check out our high-quality gear at shop.realmeneatplants.com and enjoy.
All right, Rebecca Martinez, you have lost 207 pounds.
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take. Do you ever worry that you'll gain the weight back?
Every day. Every day. I
And
think
is that a good thing?
Yes, absolutely. I think from a perspective of knowing that I have a problem with food, I have to recognize that it can potentially have power in my life, certain kinds of food. I don't pretend to understand addictions that other people go through, but I know a food addiction is what I call it. I have to recognize my triggers. I'm getting better about doing that because I won't lie, for the last several years, I've tried to sneak things in and say, I'm okay with this. And then all of a sudden I notice I can't be without a certain thing. And that's when I have to have the breakup talk with it and say, look, it's not you, it's me, and just move it out of my life. Because the minute I forget, the only times that I don't think about gaining all that weight back is when I'm in that eating mode. I'm in that numbing mode and I'm just going. It's when I stop and I realize I got to do something that I think, gosh, that weight's going to come back. Now, when I go to bed and I wake up in the middle of the night for whatever reason, it hits me. You've been eating all this food. You're going to gain that weight back, which does not help in putting me back on the right track. In fact, it makes me go straight to the fridge the moment I wake up because I'm numbing my fear and my anxiety. It is a horrible, vicious cycle, but I am learning to walk that balance. Balance is going to be the key. I can't be perfect. I know we have a lot of people in the community that are perfect. That's not going to be me, because there will be days that I indulge. Some days it's accidentally, meaning I wind up at a dinner party and somebody went out of their way to make something for me. I'm not going to be that rude person and say, no, my diet doesn't allow it. I will indulge, but my brain is going to have to get ready to go right back home and shove some broccoli in the pie hole there. But there are also times where I purposely want to say to myself, hey, it's Valentine's Day. I'm single. I'm going to go have dinner at my favorite restaurant and treat myself. Or I want this and I'm going to go have it, but I'm going to portion it out, throw out the rest because it's vegan. I don't worry about animal implications, or give the rest to somebody else and just enjoy this little part and sit with it and be okay. Sit with that little girl and say, we love you. You don't need 4 of these. Half of one is enough. Yeah. So yeah, it's an everyday process for me, Glenn. I have to stay vigilant.
It's always a problem when people prepare food for you and it isn't compliant. I guess.
Yes.
I guess the way I feel about it is if it has a little olive oil, and I don't usually eat oil, but I'll accept the little olive oil. If it's coconut oil,
yeah,
I just want to run because I'm so scared of the saturated fat in coconut oil. I just think it'll give me a heart attack. So I will not eat it.
I get it. It's just that when people find out I'm plant-based, getting invited over for dinner is usually a struggle, or going out to a restaurant, because then it's this, oh my gosh, what is she going to eat? And I will tell people, I don't even have to eat. I can just sit there and drink water and enjoy your company. It's about why we're going out. It's a birthday celebration, an anniversary, a work event. I'm cool with seltzer water and lime, folks. Or if it's a restaurant, if they have vegetables, I can just say, just throw a bunch of raw veggies on a plate and I'm good. But I think my opinion, maybe it makes people uncomfortable to watch me eating just that when they're having something else. But when you go to somebody's home and they say, I pulled this this recipe from the internet that's vegan and I made it for you, my heart it's just so sweet. And I say, okay, I'll have a little bit.
Yeah. Now you talked about food addiction a little bit. Clearly you had an addiction to cheese in the past, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
and to chocolate.
Yeah, oh yeah.
Now, right now, are there any, you don't even consider cheese, I'm sure, right?
Dairy-based cheese, no. I did have a little bit of a tryst with plant-based cheeses, like the commercial ones. There's so many out there, but those
Well,
are a trigger. Those are a trigger. I can't have those.
yeah, well, there are plant-based cheeses like the Daya cheese
That's what
that
I'm
is
referring to.
full of oil.
Oh, that's how I gained weight back.
There are other ones that are in the processed section of many grocery stores that will have coconut oil or other
Yes.
oils.
Oh,
But
yes.
then occasionally you come across a plant-based cheese. I think Kite Hill, for example, makes some of these.
Yes.
They're just made from nuts, no oil. They would be on the fattening side because they're made from nuts, but at least they're not made from oil. Would those kinds of cheeses, a nut cheese without oil, would that be something you would eat?
I would eat all of that. The problem is I have to be careful because cheese is a cheese is a cheese to me. So
Mhm.
that's a good thing and a bad thing. A bad thing because I can't buy any, but a good thing because I can make something in my kitchen. I actually developed it for one of the AJ programs. It is based on there's a restaurant here in Pasadena called Real Food Daily. They actually started in Santa Monica.
Right, I
And
know them well.
the
And
owner,
Gentry.
the Ann Gentry. I loved Ann Gentry. I had the original cookbook. The new owners, different owners, but Ann Gentry's cookbook, I got to make, I'd say 90% of those recipes, but I changed them out. I got rid of the oils. One of them was her cheese that she used for her nachos. And I figured out a way to tweak it so that it had zero nuts. It was bean based and it tasted really good. I made it in a mac and cheese kind of recipe with veggies. I can make that and it is sliceable and it's not, it's not going to be stringy or whatnot, but it melts. It hits that spot because I like food in general. I'm not very picky, so it works for me. So I have to make my own cheeses. And there's a lot of great recipes out there that are oil free. I do try to minimize the nuts only because of the fat content. I don't eat whole nuts because that's another trigger for me because my palate seems to like fat. So cheese, you're right. Kite Hill's a great brand, but I have to be careful. So I find a lot of recipes and I do what I can to tweak them. And because I'm not that picky and I'm just feeding myself, it's great. I have a little bit of cheese in the fridge and I hit that little spot and my dopamine check is done.
So, what fatty foods do you allow yourself to eat even a little bit? Do you allow yourself any avocado?
I do allow myself avocado. I will occasionally, every day I have two Brazil nuts for the selenium.
Okay.
And I'm actually okay there. For some reason, I don't have the need to overindulge in the Brazil nuts. And let's see, what else would I have? I might occasionally have some shredded coconut, the defatted one, but I try to avoid that because there is a saturated fat. But for the most part, my fat comes from, I eat a lot of beans and a lot of lentils. I do have some seeds. I do have some flaxseed in the morning with I make a little bit of oats with a bunch of shredded carrots and a bunch of spices and a banana. So I'll put some flaxseed in there, or I do chia. So those are mostly my sources of fat.
And those are great sources. I'm not going to worry about your omega-3s. You're good with the flax seeds. What do you do to keep your environment clean from any problematic foods?
Well, luckily, I live alone, so my fridge is mine. And when this first time I've lived alone since my life, everything happened. So I got this beautiful fridge, huge fridge for myself, and I fill it with all of the veggies and fruits and all of the things that I like for, the tempehs and the tofus and whatnot. I don't share a cabinet space either, so I have my own cabinet. So everything is clean in my environment. I have learned within the last few months that I cannot bring anything home. So
Just in the last few months.
well, yeah,
I'm guessing AJ told you that before the last few months.
AJ told me that 12 years ago. AJ told me that when I met her. JP told me that. Everybody that you listen to on all of the programs, Dr. Lyle, JP, McDougal, everybody, it's the environment. But that was that part. I kept trying to sneak it in and thinking I could be in control. And then
So
it's
what
when
kinds
I
of things
realized,
would you sneak in?
boy, I don't like to say it because I don't want to trigger anybody, but I would sneak in the vegan cheeses. I would sneak in, there's vegan analogs out there for candies that I used to love. You know, there's vegan, the Real company has all of those M&Ms and caramels, whatnot. Just recently I discovered this vegan store out in Hollywood over by my doctor's office. I made the mistake walking in there. It was just like kid in a candy store, literally. This kid in a vegan candy store. Bad, bad, bad. I brought a bunch of stuff home and it talks to me. You know, we all joke around that the food talks to you. Oh, it says eat me and eat me until I'm done. You know, I had a coworker who had a container of chocolate on his desk and I would go in to talk to him and it was the same container. And for about 3 weeks, I'd stare at it and he would say, why do you stare at it? Do you want one? I said, no, I just can't understand that you haven't finished it. He's like, well, I have one and I'm good. And I was just staring at him like, what's that like? Because I don't know how to just have one. I have to eat the whole thing, whether it's a bag of chips, whether it's a box of cookies or crackers or chocolates. I don't know. This is my own personal thing. So I would bring chips home, Glenn. I'd go to Costco and get the big bag, remember. But I have learned that is not going to happen if I want to maintain my success and keep my brain balanced.
Yeah. Sometimes you just have to say, I am ruling that out for the rest of my life.
I do now. I have told myself that's it. And I do not bring anything in anymore. And if I want something, say a potato chip, well, I get my mandolin out and I get my potatoes out and I will slice a few and I'll put them in my air fryer. And there's my hit. And it does work. It's just a lot of work. It's, you know, the pleasure trap. There is that convenience of opening a bag and eating it. And then by the time it gets into the palate and you have that party, that sugar, oil, salt party, it's just fireworks in the brain. Love American Style. Remember that show? It's just the fireworks in the background. That's what I picture whenever there's that hit.
That's an old reference, Rebecca.
I know. I'm aging myself. I'm dating myself there. Sorry.
Wow. That is the first Love American Style reference in the history of this podcast.
There you go.
Maybe in all of podcast history. I don't know.
It's all good. I'm proud of it.
Now, how do you deal with social situations like Thanksgiving with family?
Wow. So fortunately and unfortunately, we don't do a big Thanksgiving. I get invited to several, and I'm very grateful for the people in my life that do that. It's me and my dad, so I will usually pick up a little vegan Thanksgiving meal at Whole Foods for us. I'll bring it to his place. We'll sit down. We have the veggies. They use olive oil. What can I do? It makes my life easier. I just haven't had time to cook in the last couple of years. But we'll have our own little Thanksgiving, and then I will pop in to visit friends. And I usually bring like a roasted vegetable or something. But this year I didn't really do that. I was really just putting myself first and taking it easy. So it was just me and my dad.
How is Dad plant-based?
He is not, but he's 89 now. And I will tell you, when I was about 14 years ago, he had a heart attack. And I was really worried. Thank God he didn't need to have a stent, but the doctors realized he had previous heart attacks that we didn't know about, plus strokes. So wow. I called AJ from the hospital and she's like, put him on the diet. So I moved him into my home and I put him on a plant-based diet. I put him on AJ's protocol. I made everything in that unprocessed book. And within a couple of years, Glenn, he was off of his beta blockers. He was off of lisinopril. He was off of glucophage. Let's see. So his blood pressure, his diabetes, and his heart, all of his numbers were in check. I didn't tell the doctor I did this. And I know, folks, please don't judge me. That was my dad. And I really trusted this environment. Because the blood work would come in and I would see improvements. So I knew that we were on the right track. So one day, it was about 3 or 4 years later, and the doctor said, he's doing great. This is fantastic. Keep up the good work, senor. And I looked at my dad and I told her, he hasn't been taking the meds for a couple of years. Glenn, she immediately said, he needs to be taking his medication. It's very important. And I'm just kind of looking at her and my dad's laughing. And I just kind of said, but you said everything was okay. He's not taking his meds and he's okay. I'm not a scientist, but so, but that was, a while back. I do truly feel that it extended his life, but he's 89 now and we're struggling with him keeping weight on. And we got to the point where they've said he needs to keep the weight on in order to get the benefits of some of the medication. So there are some things he does. I just kind of look the other way and I make sure that he has his veggies and I bring him potatoes. I bring all of the staples and he gets his iPad out and does his Amazon thing, and whatever happens with him in Amazon stays with him in Amazon.
Yeah. It's so hard dealing with the medications and with the medical establishment. My mother made it to almost 99 and she had heart disease from her early 50s.
Oh, wow.
So I got her to go mostly plant-based until I moved her to California so I could take care of her. And then I made her all plant-based. But at some point, she started to develop a degree of dementia. So I moved her to an assisted living facility. And they decided that she should have some blood pressure medication. And I knew that her blood pressure fluctuated a little bit. And I just told her, just remember to take your Hawthorne, which I had discovered was good for her blood pressure. And I didn't worry about getting the other blood pressure medication. And the guy running the facility, when he found out she wasn't taking the blood pressure medication, threw a fit and said, I could lose my license. You have to get her blood pressure medication. I don't want to lose my license. I said, okay, I don't want you to lose your license. So I went to get the blood pressure medication. I went back to the facility and she had a checkup with a doctor there. And he looked at the blood pressure medication that I'd been told to get. He said, oh, no, she shouldn't take that. That'll kill her. So, it's hard to deal with those people.
It's really tough to navigate. As you well know, you go into a little version of not medical school, but you learn a lot when somebody you care about is ill and you start, and depending on, I remember years back an aunt of mine having cancer. I wasn't plant-based yet. But I still learned a lot and I learned about that world. But now when anybody I care about gets ill, I go look into the plant world first to see what there is, because it is just amazing. And we're so blessed to have all of this. Yes, all of it is not scientific based, but you can't argue with results. And that is the one thing when I get into it with people, it's that whole Occam's razor thing. It's like, look, you're just going to have to trust me on this. I have seen results. I know that it's worked. It's not just me. It's not an isolated case. I'm going to give it a shot. And the things I've done have worked for me, and I've shared some with friends, and friends that have tried it, it's worked for them.
Yeah. Yeah. When you were 347 pounds, how many different drugs were you on?
I was on, now that I think about it, I was on glucophage because I was diabetic, and I was on another medication for an endocrinological issue. I have PCOS, so at that time I was trying to conceive, which is hilarious. Who was I kidding? There were so many health issues. I was on, I forget what it's called, but it was another med, but I did have diabetes. So there were just those two, but I wasn't taking anything else. My doctor was stressing that I needed to take a statin. Luckily for me, there's a coworker whose husband suffered severe neuropathy, not for him, poor thing, but I learned from her. And there was actually this group called the Statinistas. It was kind of cute. And they were like anti-statins. And she taught me so much about that I just kind of said, whoa, I don't want to lose feeling in my feet and my hands and my legs. So I didn't take that. And I'm so grateful for that, because I averted one particular problem, because had I started that, who knows what that would have done to my body. So I wasn't on too many medications, but I was taking the glucophage, and it got me sick. It was not a pleasant experience, but apparently I needed it for my blood sugars then.
So is that an East LA group, the Statinistas?
No, it's actually, I don't know where they're based out of. It was a coworker whose husband, there's a group
Uh-huh.
of family members that have gotten together and they were going against, I think back then it was just, there was one particular brand, I don't know what medication, but they were going after them. And it was kind of cute because nice, cute play on words, but it was a
Yeah.
serious issue. There was a side effect. And my dad is getting blood work normally on every couple months because of all the medications he's on now to check the side effects. The poor liver is always what's taking the pounding when you go on
Right.
medications.
Right. So how long did it take you on a plant-based diet to get off those meds?
I was off of the medication within about a year and a half. I
Mhm.
started to feel a little odd. So I went in to see my doctor. They did the blood work and they said, "Oh, your A1 or not A1C, the blood sugar count." It was before the A1C had come out, or they didn't have it where I was going. And she said, "You're fine. We're going to take you off of this for now, but we're going to keep monitoring." Mind you, she didn't have any trust because she was with me through the big years. So she was just like, "We'll see." And I managed to keep doing that. I eventually switched over to a better insurance because I was trying to conceive. So I changed over, but I'm grateful that she was willing to check my blood and remove the medication. I wasn't taking a heavy dose, but she was open enough to not say, "Well, let's just keep you on it and see what happens," because I've heard horror stories like that.
Right. What's your advice for people who are struggling with obesity and they first learn about the plant-based diet and it seems daunting to them? What would you say to encourage them?
I would tell them that you're not alone in the fear, the initial fear of taking something from you, taking your comfort. You are not alone. There's a lot of people out there you can reach out to. And Glenn, I'm sure you have endless amounts of resources on your channel. There are people there that will help you get through that. But most importantly is hold on to yourself, trust your intuition. It's food that is going to be helping your body. I envisioned, somebody taught me this a long time ago. I envisioned kind of like, a tug of war rope with knots in it. It's like the who I want to be is way over there and there's just a rope and I'm just going to be pulling that rope towards me. And that's every good meal, every good action, every good thing I put in my mouth. The other side of that is feeling better. No more bad knees, no more bad back, no more, all of the side effects, no more shopping in the stores with the really, really large clothing, no more feeling like I don't love myself. I just kept envisioning and holding on to it's there. There's a reason. This lifestyle isn't hard, but it's not easy. But if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. And, that's the thing with most efforts that people take up. Anything of value is going to take work. Don't give up on that and don't give up on yourself. Stand in front of that mirror. AJ once did the Louise Hay stuff with us, the mirror work and the self-love. It's really powerful. I know a lot of people might think, oh, that's too woo-woo or too, hippy-dippy, but it works. Loving yourself,
Mhm.
if that is your issue. I don't know if that's the case for everybody, but for me, it worked. Loving myself and finding my true value and keep pulling that rope and finding her. And I think there's still other versions of her that I'm pulling. I'm never going to stop. We're always going to be learning.
On that note, Rebecca, it's been a pleasure getting to know you.
Thank you.
And congratulations on your 207-pound weight loss.
Thank you.
And let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. Good luck, everybody. You can do it.
Thank you. And everybody, please remember to subscribe. This has been the Glenn Mercer Show, where everyone listening turns vegan, regains their health, and annoys their friends and relatives. Find us on YouTube at The Glenn Mercer Show and across all your major podcast platforms. Don't forget to subscribe.